A serial killer was executed on October 15th. His name was MASTEN Wanjala, and the details of his case are pretty sensational. I don't want to sensationalize them further, so I'm just going to describe the specifics of his arrest as best as I can. MASTEN Wanjala was a young man who would blend into soccer games. He looked very young, so he probably occasionally blended as a player, but he would also blend as a coach. He would isolate children who were soccer players, ages 10, 11, 12, 13. He would drug them, take them out into the woods, and murder them. He would occasionally torture them or attempt to ransom them, whether they were dead or alive, to their family members for money, though he had no intent of returning the children. The case which got the most publicity was one in which Wanjala had taken a young girl out into the woods and opened up her veins so that he could drink from her before leaving her to bleed to death. He was thankfully caught and was being held in Nairobi whenever he escaped. The degree to which law enforcement was involved in expediting his escape is currently under investigation, but it is without question that he had access to a cell phone while he was incarcerated, and that he managed to travel the 250 miles to his home community undetected. 3 officers have been arrested, but there is still an investigation undergoing as to how he managed to escape. Wanjala returned to his home community and might have been able to hide out there for a protracted period of time, except that he elected to engage in a soccer game with some local youths. He was thankfully recognized as the monster that had come from their community, and a mob was quickly formed. He doubtless saw that he was in danger and attempted to flee, climbing into an open window of a nearby residence. The occupants of the residence had ironically just left through the front door to see what the commotion was and joined the mob in flushing Wanjala out of their home. Wanjala was dragged from the home, likely begging friends and family members that he had grown up with, remember this was his home community, to not hurt him. They strung him up, hung him, set him on fire, and executed him. The Kenyan Directorate of Criminal Investigations issued a short statement via tweet. They referred to this execution as a crime, noting that Kenyan police couldn't be expected to be everywhere to prevent this type of crime, and noted that Wanjala had been the victim of the law of the jungle as interpreted by irate villagers, whom he referred to as a mob. I don't like these words. I don't like the word crime, and I don't like the word mob. If you want my opinion, the Kenyan Directorate of Criminal Investigation should have issued a statement something along the lines of, "Thank you to the citizens of this community for doing our job for us. We are so sorry we let this guy get loose and return to your home to possibly prey upon your children." This wasn't a mob that had been formed at a whim to do some awful thing. This was a posse, and they were enacting vigilante justice. And perhaps it was messy and ugly and not right. But I can't help but focus on the second word of vigilante justice, because it sounds like justice. If Wanjala had had his way, somebody would have died that day, and it wouldn't have been him. It would have been some poor child. And again the next day, and again after that, because that is what these predators do. They prey upon their communities. Any community has the right to defend itself. It's why we start things like police stations and governments, is so that we can trust them to help keep us safe. Whether it was through disinterest, corruption, or just incompetence that this guy was released, of course his home community decided that he could not stay there and that they didn't trust the police to take care of it. Rather than end with whatever speculations I might have about this case, I'd like to end with some pictures of the victims in this case. Perhaps because it's sensational, or perhaps because it's international news, I've seen very little coverage of the innocent lives that this man ruined. Thank you for listening today.